here. Add to stage. There I am. 535 kilowatts divided by 30 days in a month. So that's 17.8, 18 kilowatts a day. That's 18 kilowatts a day that he is claiming hours of electricity to run everything else. 535 kilowatt hours of electricity a month. That's 18 a day, including charging an electric car. No chance. Absolutely no way that you are using 18 kilowatts a day and charging your electric car. So just for a reference point, I mean, again, and it's not a small house. Again, it's not a huge house, but this is by no means a small domicile here. I'll get the square footages. Hopefully they're in here somewhere, but I'm going to imagine it's somewhere around 2,000 square feet, somewhere between 1,800 and 2,200 square feet, just from a kind of guesstimate there, plus or minus. And so it's 24 hours in a day. So you're telling me you're using less than a kilowatt an hour. Less than a kilowatt an hour. So right off the bat, your refrigerator is going to use 0.2. I'll tell you that right there. So 20% of that's going to go into the refrigerator before you do anything else. Before you start charging your computer, you charge a computer and a couple devices. There's 0.1 there. Put some lights on. Do a laundry. Use your water. Any kind of a pumping water, or I mean, I guess they're probably on municipal water, so it's not as much energy that they need to kind of to handle the plumbing and that infrastructure. And then you factor in charging a car. So you're saying 18 kilowatts a day, and there's a car that potentially has 70 or 80 kilowatt battery to it. And even if you're charging 10% of that car every day, there's 8 kilowatts right there. I've been running this house long enough. There's no way that 18 kilowatt. No, there's days you could do it. There's days we definitely do it, and especially in the summer. But just as a rule of thumb, I would say that 25 a day, which would bring you to, and that's without charging an electric vehicle. I'd say 25 a day times 30. So that's a 750. So I'd say 750 to 1,000 is closer to the standard American household. And that's being efficient. I think that's an efficient household. Now, you could get down into the 15, 17, 18 range, but I just don't see that happening with this type of a modern house. I mean, again, running televisions, like all this stuff, even the ghost loads on your microwave, your televisions, your dishwashers, things like that. It just adds up. It adds up. We see it. Okay, I digress. I think I got a little distracted there. He's been transferring his credits from the utility to help cover the power bill for his parents who live nearby. That's nice. I like that in theory. In a couple of years, they've transferred around $4,000 worth of credits to their account. It's great. There's no real way to verify that, but that would be awesome. And clearly hooking up your parents, that's solid. And I've generated an additional $2,000 credit on my own account. And then he says he realizes now that he could have built a smaller solar system on his roof and still eliminated his electric bill, he says. His solar panels produce 16 kilowatts, which is larger than a typical rooftop system. Well, it depends on what your typical, I guess your typical average rooftop system isn't really powering your entire house. So is it bigger than your typical off-grid rooftop system? I think that's pretty much on par. We're at 14 and a half, something like that. Like I said, that's ideal conditions. So you're not really, you can't rely on producing that all the time or with frequency. But it's a, nice interior, long open interior, open treads on the stairs. I don't know what Mass State Code has to say about that. I'm sure that it meets the code. Obviously, it's got inspected, or maybe this is still a rendering mode. If they did, they'd put a cool little piece of robot artwork on there. The house, along with 2 other passive houses that were built on the same block, is designed to be airtight with heavily insulated walls. The windows are triple paned. They're also carefully oriented. A massive window next to the stairs faces south, so it can soak up as much sun as possible in the winter. All great things. We do the same thing. We've got some south-facing glass. We've got some glazing and orientation, triple paned. It definitely makes a difference. You want to be airtight, but you don't want to be too airtight. You definitely want to have some air exchange. It's important to have some outdoor air exchange actually required. And it is nice to be airtight because it has been awfully windy here. When it was that -5, -7 out, part of that feels like temperatures because the wind just is whipping through. And when we're in the house, we don't feel anything. The windows don't move. The doors don't move. Our walls are like, significant R65, something of that nature. And our roof is about this, the same. So we're well insulated. They've got some interesting, I don't know, window details there, and I don't think those things are super necessary, but it gives it that look. Definitely warms up the facade. If you walk up to visit these homes, you'd say, "Why is there a gigantic window right there?" Do you think you'd say that, or would you just say, "Oh, this is a nice house"? It's not about curb appeal. Well, it is. You built a beautiful house, necessarily. Okay, says Kevin Diebler, co-founder and principal at Road Architects, the firm that designed the houses. On a sunny day in the winter, the window means that the heat pumps in the house might not need to run at all. So if you're running heat pumps in your house in the wintertime, there's no way you're sticking at 17 kilowatts. There is just no way you're at 17 or 18 kilowatts. Those heat pumps will still run. They'll run 3 and change to warm themselves up for a little while, but they're going to run between 1 and 3 kilowatts when they turn themselves on for however long you leave them on. So you could. My wife has a studio she works in. It's just kind of separate from our house. It's her workspace, and we keep it warm. She has clients. She seats clients there, and so it needs to stay pretty comfortable. And that alone in the wintertime will take a power wall right off the bat. There's 12, 13, 14 kilowatts. 12, 13, 14 kilowatts just to run the mini split and heat what I would consider a small space. So that's not even 20 by 30. That's not even 600, 400. It's probably about 450 square feet. If that gets heated. So if you're saying on hot days in the summer and outdoor solar, okay. So says the heat pumps in the house might not need to run at all in the winter, although they will, and they'll use a lot of power. And on hot days in the summer, an outdoor solar shade can be lowered over the window to help keep the house cool. Yeah, that could work. And between that and I think having airflow is really helpful. If you could catch a breeze, design the house to maximize the systems that are already in place, the environmental systems, circulation, and just kind of natural systems that are already, we should have a little bit more dialogue with and cohesion with. Tile floors sit on a 12-inch concrete foundation embedded in foam. The foundation soaks up heat and releases it slowly, helping keep the temperature as stable as possible. Mini split heat pumps run only when necessary. A ventilation system pulls in fresh filtered air from outside multiple times a day. That's, I think, by code around here, too. The system cleans out pollution, including, for example, the wildfire smoke from Canada that drifted into Boston last summer. So, but that's your typical ventilation mini split heat pump system. A lot of houses do have that now. We certainly have that now. It uses a lot of power. That's my only thing is it's awesome. And when you're grid tied, it's no problem. And most of the time it's no problem, but until it's a problem. Because the house is airtight, it's also quiet. I'm right at the corner of a very busy road, says Saint Onge. Onge? I'm sorry if I got that name wrong. It's remarkably quiet in the house. You can't hear the road at all. I guess this is a picture of the house because it looks like this looks, I think this looks pretty legit. It does say photo. It's going to say photo. I'm going to say we're going for it. It's not a rendering. It's built. Yeah, it looks really nice. Shadows look nice. But again, the tile floor, we have tile we have reclaimed wood. Actually, the wood floors in our house came from a factory that used to produce ships and be part of the shipbuilding industry on the coast of Massachusetts. And when they took that factory down, they had the old Douglas fir beams, and those were milled into variable width plank flooring. And so we have those in our house, and it's neat because it has some of the character, a lot of the character from the old posts and the old factory buildings. But tile's cold. The tile that we have in our bathroom, in our mudroom, it's really cold. And so unless it doesn't mention that they have radiant floor heating, underfloor heating. So if that's the case, I mean, I don't care how well insulated it is, if you're stepping on those tile floors in the wintertime, they're going to be chilly. It's nice. Yeah, it's beautiful house. Absolutely beautiful house. No gripe about that. Building a passive house typically adds around 10% to the cost of a new building, said Ken Levinson, executive director of the Passive House Network. But utilities, cities, states, and the federal government offer a range of incentives that can bring the cost down, including rebates for heat pumps and insulation, which is true. But I'm going to say that 10%, depending on how far you're going with what do you want to call it, passive house or just sustainable, resources, however many you're incorporating into there. I think 10% is probably like a low addition to the cost. While the upfront cost can be made up for in utility savings over time, the incentives make it an easier calculation, Levinson says. Again, some more interior shots. It's nice. That is. It's a large glazed window going up the stairs. I don't think anybody think that's odd. I think that's really nice. That's a lot of light in, that's for sure. New regulations mean that a growing number of multifamily buildings are also being built to passive house standards. In Massachusetts, for example, large apartment buildings now have to meet the requirements and dozens are under construction. Due to New York City's strict new energy requirements for large buildings, many developers there are also building to passive house standards. So this is great. So we could just kind of skim through that because here's the end. So this is it. The design principles make sense at all building sizes. What I say about passive is if you build one, it's going to be hard for you to build any other way after that. That makes sense. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to design a house that's passive. It's a lot of work to live in a house that's passive to a certain degree. And especially when this doesn't mention anything about the democratization of power, for lack of a better term. I know I talk about that again all the time, but it doesn't talk about how you're taking your energy use into your own hands. So it doesn't talk about knowing how much power your mini split actually takes, how much power your microwave takes. Heating, do you heat your tea water up on the stove? Do you plug it in? Do you have, how does this, and because you're not off grid, you're not really dependent on the fact that you could run out of power potentially, or you might have to be creative about creating a redundancy or having another sustainable resource to be able to use. And so it's just a matter of, it's easy to throw out a lot of the terms. It's easy to kind of talk about a lot of the terms and promote a lot of the terms that are hot button, that are trendy, but to really get into it, to really dissect it, and to talk about what it actually means when you have a headline that says this Boston homeowner doesn't pay anything to heat his house. Well, of course he does. Of course he does, because he had to pay up front. I mean, again, he invested in the house, so maybe in his mind, it wasn't like he had to pay any extra, but there was an additional cost to that. And I think that's something that we want to talk about as we move the technology forward, as we move the lifestyle forward, and as we move the conversation forward about living off grid. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think I rambled on a lot, but it was an interesting article. And as I said before, we finally got our generator to the point where it is turning on automatically. It's charging our Tesla Powerwalls automatically without having to switch over manually. And we're getting a 50%. We can get we had a 50% charge yesterday or 2 days ago when it was gray out. And it was really helpful that it just kind of all happened, that we've always had to go out and manually switch everything over. So this is a new frontier for us and another conversation for another day. But thanks for sticking around with me. Hope everybody has enough power for their day, inside and out. And we'll see you soon, late night and off grid.